All right, next item. You put a tweet in here from Luke Stokes, who says, hey, shout out to Luke Stokes, hope everything's well, fella. Luke says, what does it look like to see a network fully govern itself? A bit like this, I guess. This will be a very interesting story to follow, and he's got the Block.com, and he's talking about EOS. EOS community halts $250 million of funding to Block.one, Brock Pierce. Interesting. So the EOS community is making the funding of Block.one more stringent, I assume. What's this about?
Yeah, so this is might sound a little bit familiar. You have Block.one had an ICO, 10% of the tokens they pre-mined kept for themselves on a vesting schedule where they were being unlocked if they had met, I don't know if they had even a contract in place, but from the backdrop is, they're going to get these tokens on a vesting schedule, and they provide, a bunch of their promises from the EOS ICO. And they've just been getting this EOS in a set schedule, and there's still about 67 million EOS left from the 100 million they were going to get, right? So they've got, a little less than 30 or 40%. And now the community, the block producers, have come together and said, these guys have really just kind of fucked off, and they haven't done anything they said, and we're just going to freeze it. And I'm thinking they put it into a DAO or something. So one of the stipulations here is that I hear that Brock Pierce had sort of did like a deal with Block.one where he bought these tokens or bought access to these tokens before he actually had them. And he's actually, there people are saying Brock Pierce is actually doing stuff. He's putting stuff together. He's promoting EOS. So now there's this sort of internal debate whether, these should go to Brock Pierce, who's bought them, sort of an OTC deal from Block.one. Is he going to be quote unquote benevolent and hold up to what he was supposed to do and all these things? So we're starting to see, and I'm very, I want to say I'm surprised, but it's definitely more on the side of a pleasant surprise, because I love to see things where communities are waking up and they're saying, hey, founders, you have a pre-mine, you have a very large influence in this network. We're going to hold you accountable as the peasants, right? As the lower tier people who don't have as much stake, who didn't do the pre-mine, had to get it and earn it, buy it off the open market. We're going to hold you accountable. And I wonder if, the Hive sort of sent a ripple effect, and now these communities are starting to look internally and say, hey, and I said in a video I did recently, you have two options, and both of them are bad if you join a pre-mine chain. First is the founder keeps control, doesn't dump, doubles down. The chain is centralized. That's the worst thing that can happen. The best of the bad scenario is that the founder dumps. They dump all the tokens. Well, if the founder dumps all the tokens and they're a pre-mine, they're just going to cash out, and then you're going to have a low price, and then you're going to have the onus on the community to actually pick up the burden. And Steam Hive is realized, we've lived through this, so we understand. So it's sort of like jump the gun, right? If you see these sort of founders as points of failure, cut them out. Put them in a DAO. Say you can earn your tokens back if you participate in et cetera, but you're not just going to get a free lunch. As you start to see this happening in other communities, let's see what happens, because EOS is a big chain. This is not a small chain where people are actually, this is lots of hundreds of millions of dollars in value we're talking about here. So it's very interesting to see what goes on. Who else is another pre-mine layer one going to wake up and say, seems like our founders are just cashing out, not really doing anything. They're just a burden anyway. What the fuck are we doing? And yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder if it'll become fashionable for chains to fork out their founders, because ultimately, even though the founders have the vision to build the chain and everything, they do have these percentages, and they are a liability, and the founders have to admit. Either if it's because the founders are rich and they don't need to work as hard as they used to, or if it's because they're now subject to regulation and more easily approachable to be talked to or reasoned with or arrested. These are weak links to the chain, and you've got to have a freaking strong chain to justify having that heavy load on your side and being able to survive if it does get compromised. So I don't think there's any chains out there that could survive that, these founders becoming compromised. So there's either going to be find a way to relinquish your stake, or we're going to fork out, or we're going to hold you to account in some way. So maybe this is starting to kick on, like you say, Dan.
Yeah, it's very interesting. It's sort of like being in a bad relationship. You know it's going to end. It's better to go ahead and get the infrastructure in place and be prepared ahead of time than to just wait for the inevitable. There are no good ends in a pre-mine.
I don't know what Brock Pierce is doing. I mean, he's got a sketchy freaking history as it is, and very strange stuff I've heard from his history. And then also, you see him bouncing around the South American countries, getting himself in photo shoots with the big wigs over there. But what he's really doing, I don't know. But it's certainly not EOS related, that's for sure. So fair play to EOS for coming up with a way to limit those payments.
Mm-hmm.